Hey, welcome. Good to be with you. In this session, we're going to be actually putting some of that stuff into action, right? We're going to develop your integrated technology strategy, and that's going to involve a number of different elements that we're going to try to seam together. This video will also help you along in understanding how to put together your midterm assignment. So we'll talk more about that, but let's get on with it now as we begin to understand the strategic imperative. Failing to fully integrate AdTech and CommTech into an integrated MarTech strategy isn't just a missed opportunity, it's a strategic blunder. Heard that from a speaker someplace, and I thought it was pretty cool. Basically, he's right. She's right, as I remember. And the whole idea was that we are developing a strategic imperative to avoid things that we don't want to occur, and that is disconnected customer experiences, which should result in broken journeys. Without technology integration, customers receive fragmented, inconsistent communications across channels. Second component that we want to avoid, and very seriously want to avoid, is this idea that missed personalization opportunities. Siloed technologies lead to duplicated efforts, underutilized capabilities, and suboptimal investment decisions. We buy sometimes a lot of technology and we don't think much about it until we actually go put it in place and realize that we didn't get the most out of it we should have. Limited measurement and optimization without unified data and analytics, as we have discovered so far, organizations struggle to understand the true impact of their communication efforts. And then finally, missed personalization opportunities. We talk about an audience of one cast across millions. That's the idea. The inability to activate data across channels delivering truly personalized experience at scale is going to be a missed opportunity, to say the least. Customers don't care about the difference between advertising, PR, and marketing. They expect seamless, relevant experiences of channel or touch point. That's really what it comes down to. So we begin with trying to understand the first question. And the first question is, what do you have to make the trip? Are we prepared? We need to develop a clear understanding of what your current technology ecosystem is all about. So that includes technology inventory, documenting core platforms, identifying the primary systems like CRM, marketing automation, AdTech platforms, and PR software. We want map point solutions, catalyzing specialized tools, some of these agentics we use these days, and some of the other specified apps that maybe certain people in our organization are using and we aren't all using. And identifying shadow IT, and that becomes the third part of what I just talked about, and that is we have people within the organization sometimes doing and using other things that we don't know about. And it's not that IT is supposed to be the police, even though I think sometimes IT feels like that. What they are supposed to be doing is helping us integrate and understand the true benefit that people are getting out of the software. If some one individual in the back 40 is getting a real benefit, they ought to be sharing that. We ought to be knowing about it. Capability assessment in data collection and unification. We've talked about that. Audience management, content creation and management, a hot area, especially with AI these days. Channel execution, and of course, finally, and never, ever ending, measurement and optimization. That leads us to integration analysis, and that is understanding data flow mapping, and that is documenting how data moves between systems and identifying the bottlenecks or breaks in those systems. And then we want to evaluate the processes we have going, examining cross-functional processes that span multiple technologies. Are they functioning well together? Is there better combination? Do we have a master kind of architecture going on? And then user experience assessment, evaluating the experience for both internal users, our people, and external customers, both the people that we maybe associate with in delivering our product, or even and of course the end user, the customer. Finally, stakeholder insights, conducting stakeholder interviews, speaking with key users across departments. If your firm is not using something like Net Promoter Score for internal use, I have clients using that. We use Net Promoter Score to understand how customers think about us and whether or not they would buy from us again or recommend us to someone else. And we're doing the same thing with many of my clients with internal customers, the NPSI, the internal piece, and how are we getting any kind of buy-in? How are people actually saying, yeah, that I use that, I'm into that, I make that happen? And then using that as gathering the quantitative feedback to measure just whether or not we need to make an improvement or fix something or whatever, using surveys to collect structured input from a broader use base. And finally, evaluating skills and capabilities of individuals. We talk about there's going to be a lot of jobs replaced at the very low end. Okay, so how do we train those folks up? How do we find those folks that are capable of moving up and doing more complex, more important, more value-creating tasks? These insights across these four, when we develop insights across these four areas, we will ensure that your strategy addresses actual user needs rather than just satisfying technical requirements, bright, shiny objects, and all that rigmarole. It's the journey before the journey. That's really what it comes down to. So when we begin to embark on this, we really want to begin with a vision, right? This guy's looking and saying, where are we going with this thing? What's this technology thing going to do for us? With a clear vision, you can create an effective strategy. And that begins with number one, defining strategic principles. What is customer centricity in your organization? How will technology choices improve customer experiences? How is it that we're thinking about the customer being the one that we're trying to deal with and to move our direction? Data strategy. What's your approach to collection? What's your approach to unification? We've talked about that numerous times. Technology philosophy. What criteria will guide build versus buy decisions, and platform versus point solution choices? Two things we'll talk about more as we progress through in the next couple of weeks. The governance model. Governance is a kind of a catch-all term, but it really comes down to how will technology decisions be made and by whom. And this really comes down to process. It comes down to lots of important things that we need to resolve before we begin our journey. We need to envision the future state that you want to be in with your technology. Customer journey mapping. That's why we lay out that map for the customer journey. We understand that how they actually become aware, how they actually then move to the whole idea of putting your product, your service into the consideration set. And then finally, how do they convert? And the important part is how do we get them to kind of love us and evangelize for us? That involves data architecture. What will your unified customer data platform look like? What and how will it support real-time decision-making? Operational excellence, how will your teams collaborate? Collaboration is the key to it all, and if we don't really have people understanding what each other's doing, we're probably going to miss out on the more effective way that we can integrate tools and processes. It all comes down to people, right? Measurement framework. Measurement again, there it is. It's all over the place. Third, we want to set strategic objectives. Without an objective, we really don't know whether or not we're going to get to where we want to go, and whether or not where we want to go or where we said we're going to go, that's how we're going to get there. Customer experience goals, defining specific improvements in satisfaction, in engagement, in conversion, those critical areas. Operational efficiency targets. Not only do we have to be good at getting a hold of people, we have to be efficient. We need to set benchmarks for process improvement. It's happening all the time because tools are coming out all the time and ideas are coming in and people are getting smarter all the time. So that also involves cost reduction because no one can continue to operate at a high cost of acquisition, a CAC cost. And it can't do that. And of course, it also leads to team productivity. Data and analytics capabilities, establishing the milestones for data quality, accessibility, and activation. Speed. Speed is what separates the good guys from the really good guys. And then finally, technology performance metrics. And this includes uptime. Is the system down when we can least afford it? What causes the integration? What causes the lack of integration? And user adoption targets are being hit or not. So we then move to this really a prioritization movement, impact versus effort analysis. We try to understand two things are important, business impact and implementation effort. Now, when we think about that, I'm going to kind of lean into our assignment for the midterm here, and we'll talk more about it in more specifics. But this is a 2x2 matrix, basically, that measures business impact versus implementation effort. This little slide will be available to you at Brightspace. So what we're trying to do is understand decision making there. If you look at the boldface under strategic investment, it says plan carefully. Why? Because this is a high payoff but complex area. That's why we do these 2x2s, to kind of help us in terms of shaping or looking at the kinds of decisions we need to make. Phasing, critical. Organizing your roadmap into logical phases. And these typically span 3 to 6 months. So this is a year-long effort. Phase 1's foundation, 2 is activation, 3 is optimization, and 4 is innovation. And that becomes the phasing of it all, which we'll get into much more detail as we progress. Each phase should deliver tangible business value. There's that V word again. Value, while building toward your ultimate vision. We're connecting those two together. Dependency mapping is about the idea of understanding the critical dependencies between initiatives, technical dependencies, data dependencies, skill dependencies. Which systems must be implemented before others can succeed? Is there something not succeeding because we've avoided a step? We're going to try to avoid that action. Data dependencies. What data infrastructure will be in place? We're swimming in data, and the biggest challenge sometimes is just organizing it to actually come to the insight, to the understanding, the motivation that we need to move toward a customer so that they'll move toward our product more often. And then finally, skills dependencies. What team capabilities must be developed to enable success? With AI, they say they're going to strip away that first layer. Well, probably so, but are there people working at the first layer, the intro layer, that can be moved up, that we can upskill, that we can actually create greater dependencies on their ability to drive our organization through their knowledge? Using this analysis to sequence your roadmap logically and avoid implementation bottlenecks is what we're going to try to do. That brings us to this idea of next steps. Here's what we're a recap of what we just talked about, from starting with the assessment to building consensus to prioritizing ruthlessly, and then executing systematically. Those are the 4 steps that we just touched on. We'll get in much more detail as we move forward. So, the conclusion then is rather simple. If there is a single message, it is remembering the goal isn't just technology integration. It's creating sustainable competitive advantage through superior customer experiences and operational excellence. The organizations that master this integration will be the ones that thrive in our increasingly connected world. Okay, next up, developing CommTech strategic mapping. That's going to be some fun. We're getting down to the dirt, the nitty-gritty, if you will. Thanks. We'll be back soon. Take care.